All right, this video is for the beginning of a new unit on economic growth and productivity. So this is actually about Module 37. So, first of all, Module 37 is looking at how we can actually compare countries. Oftentimes, economically speaking, we want to be able to compare countries across the board and be able to tell which country is doing better than others. And so the best way to do that is using what we call real GDP per capita. We've talked about real GDP per capita before. Remember that the real part of GDP, real GDP per capita, is taking out inflation out of the equation. So we're looking at how many more products we can produce, not a result of the prices going up. And then per capita is just taking the real GDP divided by the population. So generally, the real GDP per capita also shows family income growth. That's usually proportional to real GDP per capita, and so that will actually fall in line. But remember, what we talked about before is that the problems with using this is that it's not necessarily a good representation of, for example, there's large differences between the rich and the poor. There is a great divide. There's also doesn't show us the actual social ramifications of these things. So there is some drawback to this. Also keep in mind, I did an activity in class with this where students were in groups, and I gave them a bunch of materials to be able to make some products, and what they found is not only did they have an uneven population, so in this case they had an uneven number of people in their group, but at the same point in time they also had an uneven number of resources. And so that's another issue here is that it doesn't necessarily reflect what natural resources each individual country has to work with. Some would argue that that's kind of the point, is showing us the differences between their resources and what they can actually do with it. So just a couple of things to look at here. This chart is looking at the top 10 countries in GDP per capita for 2014. Now obviously this is nominal GDP, so it's slightly off, but that's okay. Obviously Luxembourg is at the top of the list, so that's kind of interesting. Luxembourg is obviously a very small country in Europe, but it is a very rich country and doesn't have a whole lot of people. The United States is 10th on the list, and the world here, by the way, this is the world GDP per capita. What about looking at the world as a whole? Now this is, slightly blurry with this, color differences here, what the numbers actually mean. But this is looking at GDP per capita, and you can tell that the lighter colors, the blue and the purple and the pinkish colors, those are the richer countries in the world, and then the darker colors are going to be the ones that are obviously the poorer countries in the world. So looking at this map, I mean, does it really surprise you that obviously North America is in the top, Europe is in the top, Australia is in the top, Japan, those kinds of things. Whereas it's interesting because the ones at the bottom are going to be obviously a lot of African countries, a couple of Middle Eastern countries, Southeast Asia countries that are lower GDP per capita. Now, why this is, we're going to get to a little bit later. Why are there differences? Especially looking forward to growth potential. Can we see that all of these countries are growing? Which ones are growing more frequently, more often than others? So that gives you an idea there. One of the other things in determining and comparing countries is that we also look at what they call the rule of 70. The rule of 70 determines how long it takes something to double. In this case, we're talking about GDP, how long it takes your GDP to double, but it can apply to other things as well. I'll give you a couple of, for instance. So we want things to be doubling. So in order to figure out the rule of 70, so the number of years it takes to double is the number 70 divided by the annual growth rate. And the growth rate, we're taking it by that percentage number. We're not converting it into a decimal. That was one confusion that I had some people talk about. So this, like I said, works with GDP, but it also works with population, savings accounts, anything that that has an annual growth rate to it, and you want to know how long it would take for that number to double. So, for example, if we know that the world population is increasing by 1% every year, okay, then we would take 70 divided by that 1%, and that would give us 70 years to double. Obviously, that's very extreme. What about this example? So if my savings account earns 2% interest, which by the way is an extraordinarily high interest rate for a savings account, but we're doing that for easy math. How long will it take for my $1,000 in my savings account to become $2,000? How long would it take for it to become $4,000? So think about it. So if you're earning 2% interest, the number of years to double, you're going to take 70 divided by 2. 70 divided by 2 will give us 35 years, so that will take it to 2,000, and then to double again to 4,000, it would take another 35 years, so 70 years total from 1,000 to 4,000. So hopefully you got that. All right, so what causes long-run growth? So we want growth in our economy as a whole. What causes growth in the long run? Well, generally, this is due to productivity increasing, so the output per worker. In other words, each worker being able to make more products. And productivity increases generally because of a couple of things. So here's our productivity. We're being able to do more stuff. But increases in physical capital. So physical capital is going to be any goods that are used to produce other products. So this is going to be capital goods. Remember when we talked way back at the beginning about factors of production? So these are going to be those products, like for example in your book they talked about a tractor, right? Farmers need tractors. So those are going to be things that are going to be used to produce other things. A tractor, a computer, paper, those are all things that we need to produce other items. Other things that increase long-run growth, increases in human capital. So human capital would include education and training of your workers. So sending your workers to a training seminar or people going and getting their master's degree or their doctorate or even just their bachelor's degree. You are increasing your human capital right now. Lastly, increases in technology, and this is the means of production. Now, the thing with the technology is that people oftentimes get technology confused with physical capital. What I would suggest you take into account is that physical capital, what we mean by that is items that are already in existence that we could increase the number of, whereas technology is going to be more about new things that could happen. For example, there was a long time where computers were around for, has been around for a long time. However, it had not really impacted the economy a great deal because businesses didn't know really what to do with computers. How are we going to use this in a new productive fashion? And interestingly enough, Walmart was one of the first companies to actually put computers to a good use that actually increased their productivity by using, for example, those little scanners to be able to change the prices of their products rather than manually going around and changing the price tags, or using the electronic cash register. Other examples, your book mentioned the example of the flat-bottomed paper bag. Obviously, that was revolutionary at the time when it first came out. It sounds ridiculous right now that was a revolutionary idea, but not having your stuff rolling around, having a flat base to be able to put your stuff in. More recent examples. What about this? These are those little attachments you can put onto your phone or your iPad that enables you to swipe a credit card or a debit card. I don't know about you, but my family goes to festivals, and so we'll go to a festival, and those places where they have people that are crafty people that make their own soap or candles or I don't know, potpourri, peanut butter, and it used to be when we went to festivals that we go to buy the product and we'd always have to bring a whole bunch of cash on us because the vendors wouldn't accept anything. They didn't have any other way to be able to accept money, and so they had to accept cash. Oftentimes they didn't even want out-of-state checks. And so the interesting thing now is with the advent of this little card reader, it makes it so much easier. Think about this. I mean, this is revolutionary. Now we can have these small business owners, they don't have to pay for one of those big, huge machines to be able to connect to a, an outlet, for example. This can plug into your phone and it just drains off your phone, and it's just, using your phone's Wi-Fi. Okay, that's amazing, right? And so it enables a lot more productivity for those businesses. Another good example, what about these? These are all examples of cloud computing, right? Cloud computing, and if you talk to any older person, they don't quite understand how it works. But cloud computing is a huge thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but all of my presentations are all Google Slides. And the reason that I do that is because for school, I have my MacBook. The school gave, just like you, I have an iPad. But then at home, I have an HP computer. Well, none of those things necessarily, I can't shift, for example, this presentation and work on it on my iPad and my MacBook and my HP. I'd have to transfer the file back and forth, and obviously it wouldn't be transferable between all three of those. Whereas all of these cloud storage and, for example, Google Drive with all of their different platforms enables me to be more productive because I can work anywhere. I have worked in a lot of different weird places, believe it or not. I've recorded some of these video things at the YMCA or at the pool. But the point is that it increases productivity because I can work anywhere as long as I can get some internet access. So hopefully this makes sense. These three are going to be our main core of this particular unit. So it'll be popping up again and again: physical capital, human capital, and technology. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I'm done for now.